Okay, back on. Are we good? Let me just put a little music. Okay, are we good? Let me know if we're good. Oof. Are we good? How are we doing? Are we good? Okay, I'm seeing like buttons. Please let me know if you can hear me. Please let me know if the connection is good. Awesome. We're just going to give everyone a couple more minutes to come on. If when you come on, just let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me, if the connection is good. I'm sorry, the devil's messing with my Wi-Fi today. Sorry, y'all. Okay, are we good? Can we hear me? Yes, I know the map. That's my doing. I thought it would be prettier if I mixed and matched the positioning. Awesome. Connection is good. Awesome. Okay. All right, so we already started with our word of prayer. I'm just going to give one more word of prayer because it seems that we're having a little bit of shaky start with the connections. If we could just bow our heads and close our eyes. Lord Heavenly Father, we thank you for the ability to come together and discuss real topics, discuss tough topics. We don't know what's going on, but we ask that you intercede. We ask that you move among us and move through us, Lord. May the words that come out of my mouth be you speaking through me and not words that are of myself. I ask that you be with everyone on this live. May everyone be blessed. Do all these things I ask in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. So we want to welcome everybody to our Real People, Real Lives broadcast. This is a group of us young people all coming together to discuss relevant topics that affect our young people. I apologize. That affect our young people in today's day. Last week we had the opportunity to sit with Obel and speak about our part one of our mental health series, When Just Praying Isn't Enough. We had an opportunity to clarify some of the myths that surround mental illness, depression, anxiety, especially in the Black community, especially in the Haitian community. I definitely want to give a shout out on behalf of the Real People, Real Lives team to Matthew Jean, Lynn Olius, Carlene Champagne, and Andre Ricketts for coming on and sharing your insight with us. You know, we were able to take away a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, and we hope that you'll be able to do the same. Are we able to share this? We encourage everyone to share this video with your friends, your family and friends. This is a very relevant topic. This is a very important topic. Everyone is affected by mental illness in some way, whether we're going through it, whether we have a loved one who is going through it. Everyone is affected by mental wellness in some way. The title of our broadcast is When Just Praying Isn't Enough. And tonight I'm encouraging us all to look at a holistic approach to achieving mental wellness and achieving mental health. Are we able to see me? Are we good? Y'all, my Wi-Fi is really acting up. I don't know what's going on. Are we good? If we can give me the like button before I continue. Okay, I think we're good. It looks like my connection might be a little shaky. Okay, in the name of Jesus, we're just going to continue and hope that we can make it through. So the goal tonight is for us to have a holistic approach towards achieving mental health, mental wellness. It is true. Just praying isn't enough. Prayer is important. It is very important, especially in our faith. Seeking God, depending on God, leaning on God. It is very, very important. However, that shouldn't be your sole means of achieving mental wellness and mental health. God places people in our lives. God places resources in our lives in order for us to achieve that mental wellness. So our goal tonight is first to seek God, to seek help, professional help, to take care of your temple, and to allow your village to support you. This is the recurring theme that we want to emphasize as we go through this broadcast. So I'm going to start with the first point of seeking God. Of course, we know that our faith is very important. Prayer is very important. It's important to keep God first in everything you do. Ask God for comfort and the strength to hear his voice. Dealing with mental illness, dealing with depression, anxiety, PTSD is very, very difficult. You know, it's very tough for many people. And it's important that, you know, we lean on God. You know, that we believe that his strength is perfect in our weakness. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 says, "For God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." You know, God, he is our source of strength. He's our source of hope. He's our source of peace. And in times when it may feel like there's chaos going on inside of our brains, inside of our spirit, inside of our souls, we can lean on God. We can seek God for refuge. We can seek God for strength. We have John 14, verse 27, that says, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Do not let your heart be troubled, nor let it be fearful." And this is a verse that carried me through 2017, you know, and it just reminds us that God stands as that source of peace for us, that source of comfort, that source of hope. In times when, you know, we feel that we can't carry on, times when we feel that we can't handle it on our own, God becomes that strength for us in our time in trouble. So our first thing, remember, we are seeking God in our holistic approach to achieving mental wellness. Second step, as we discussed last week, we must seek help. I know in our Christian community, sometimes we are reluctant to seek help because we feel that we must depend on our faith solely in order to achieve mental wellness. However, even in the Bible, God sent counselors, God sent advisors, God sent mentors to be there for people who needed it. The Bible says in Proverbs 11 verse 4, where no counsel is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. God is okay with us seeking the professional help that we need. It is okay to go to a therapist. The same way when you have a cold, you have a fever, you're struggling with cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, whatever the case may be, you go to a doctor. Mental illness is an illness as any other illness, and we should take it as seriously as we would another illness. With that being said, God provides people for us. He places people in our lives so that we can go to them for help. We can go to them for counsel. We can go to them for advice. If we look at the situation with Joseph and Pharaoh, Pharaoh was having all these dreams that made him feel like he was losing his mind. He couldn't interpret them. Everybody he asked for help to interpret these dreams, he was not able to get an answer. And so God placed Joseph as an advisor, as a counselor, to not only interpret these dreams, but also give him a course of action in terms of how to act upon these dreams. What is the next step? If we look at the situation, the story of Daniel and King Nebuchadnezzar, the same thing, where God placed Daniel there to serve as an advisor, a counselor, a mentor. And we have our ultimate counselor, our ultimate mentor, Jesus Christ, who was the greatest example in the New Testament, leading the 12 disciples, advising them, showing them an example, showing them how they could deal with whatever their troubles were, whatever their fears were. And in that same sense, today, if you know you're dealing with something, you're hurting, God places professionals, therapists, counselors in our lives for us to go to them for the help that we need. And I just wanted to bring out a couple of facts and statistics. According to the Health and Human Services Office of Minority and Health, African Americans are 20% more likely to experience serious mental health problems than the general population. In addition, only about 1/4 of African Americans seek mental health care compared to 40% of whites. This is a very interesting and alarming statistic because it is relevant in our communities, it's relevant in our culture, and it's something that we should take seriously. So in achieving step 2, which is seeking help, seeking professional help, I'm going to call on Alicia Sharp, who's been working in the mental health field for the past 10 years. Her focus has been in child welfare and other areas. She's experienced in providing individual and group counseling to help support individuals affected by mental health and PTSD. And her studies focus on human services and psychology. It's saying error loading again. We want to welcome everybody, our new guests, to our mental health and suicide talk here on Real People, Real Lives, as we bring on Alicia. As we said in the beginning, our goal tonight is to approach our mental wellness, our mental health from a holistic point of view. I turned off my Wi-Fi, y'all, so I'm hoping that it's helping. Alicia, could you just request to come on again? I think I lost you. Are we good? Are you able to hear me? Is everyone able to hear me? We encourage you to ask your questions. Yay, awesome.
Hello.
We encourage you to ask questions. As many questions as you need. Our guests, our speakers are here to answer your questions, address your concerns. As I said before, we're here discussing mental wellness and suicide in part 2 of our series. We're approaching it from a holistic point of view. First, we acknowledge that prayer and seeking God is important. Second, we acknowledge that it is important to seek help. And we know that God has placed people in our lives to help us achieve that mental health. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Alicia. Hey, girl.
Hello. Well, thank you, Julia. I'm so honored to be here tonight. I think it's such a great and important topic that you're spreading awareness on. So it's my pleasure to be here to answer any question or share any information that I can in order to, really decrease the stigma about mental illness.
Mhm.
Um, so one of the things I guess we want to discuss is why maybe in the African American community, minorities might be a little reluctant to seek help in terms of like their mental health support. And there are numerous reasons as to why. For a lot of individuals, there is that barrier to accessing mental health care. Not knowing where to go, or for even initially acknowledging that they have an issue, that they are dealing with mental health issues, and this is not just something that, this is how I am, or this is how this person is. There's something really going on. And
Mhm.
oftentimes the cause is due to, you know, violence, exposure to a lot of violence. And in our community, especially, there is a lot of that. There is gun violence, police brutality, our environment sometimes might be a little bit prone with a lot of crime situations. So within the African American community, there's a lot of risky behavior that might take place, and individuals don't really get a chance to reach out and have access to the care. Another reason behind that is, within our community or in the African American community, there has been a lot of keeping that information in the family, keeping the family's business, not necessarily going out and spreading
Mhm.
our personal stuff out in the community. So that reluctance to go out and seek professional help has caused a lot of turmoil internally for individuals as well as their family and loved ones. Um, And I think that really goes back to decades, even going back to slavery times where African Americans were taught or punished for speaking up or breaking the rules.
Mhm.
They were told to stay on the slave ship, and they act up or would try to speak up, they will be punished. And looking back today or coming up for today in our homes, that's a lot of the situation that does take place where, you don't necessarily take that information out. You kind of keep it with us because it
Mhm.
can lead to maybe more trauma or more difficulty for the person. You don't want to put your family stuff out there, so therefore society or the neighbors can look at you like you are that family, you must be crazy, along with all of the other stigmas that goes along with having a mental illness.
Now, what are some of the mental health issues that you found and from your experience that are more prevalent in the Black community?
Mental health issues, depression. A lot of times those aren't really addressed. It's just seen as something that a person might be dealing with some sadness, but depression goes beyond just, a few sad days or having um, just, a bad day. And so people can really get stuck in that mindset that they don't go out to seek help, they don't really understand what depression look like, and kind of
Mhm.
live life in that way, kind of just feeling stuck, not feeling as though they can really speak to anyone about their challenges. And I find that because of the hush hush, keep certain things to yourself or in the family, a lot of people, we might surround ourselves with so many individuals, right? But
Mhm.
things that are really going on, serious issues that we're dealing with, the hurt, the internal trauma, those things are not being spoken about, right? We're keeping
Mhm.
that to ourselves. So in essence, it just kind of get buried inside, and eventually people's cup get filled and things start to spill over, and they might come out in anger towards your loved ones. Generally, it's towards loved ones because they're closest to us, and they're always going to be around. We've had experience with anger, and we're made up, and sometimes it can spill over into the workforce or within other areas. Excuse me, that was a incoming call.
Can everybody hear Alicia? I just want to make sure. I think we got cut off for a second. Can everybody hear Alicia? Are we good? Can we click the like button or comment? Let us know that you can hear us. Let me tell you, my connection is messing. Okay, we're good. So we're good. I get one yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're good. Okay. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments. Awesome. Feel free to drop them down in the comments. Could you talk to me a little bit about what some of these triggers are? I know we like to keep things on the hush hush, but you know, there are a lot of issues that we deal with in the Black community and even the Haitian community, the West Indian community for you today. What are some of these triggers that lead us to have these mental health issues from your experience?
From my experience, I feel triggers can be anything. It depends on, I would say, the trauma that the person have experienced. For someone who may have been through, let's say, sexual trauma, right? As a young person, a child in childhood, maybe they were told, after the trauma occurred, they were probably told, okay, go and take a shower and clean up and, get nice and put your stuff on and pretend nothing happened. So maybe even just saying to someone, okay, why don't you go and relax? You seem to be a little bit stressed out. Maybe you should just go and take a nice bath, take a shower, and go and, just relax a little bit. That can be a trigger, because to that person, it's probably bringing them right back to, that childhood stage or that traumatic situation, and creating a lot of, what is it? Their symptoms can now start to appear where they probably get anxious, depressed, and the person might not be aware as to what's going on. They might not have been seeking treatment or know how to identify these triggers within themselves. Another thing could be just the environment that a person is growing up in. If it's a very violent, hostile environment, those can be triggers. As you grow up, you go to work or whatever the situation may be in your social life, maybe hearing arguments or, violence occurring nearby can really be a trigger for that person, get them more anxious. And then it's like that whole fight or flight state start to come, you're not really sure how to respond. So for some people, it's, it's time to fight. Like, my adrenaline is going, this is what I know. This is my survival mechanism. Or for others, it can look like, running away and not necessarily facing the problem. And, well, being passive, which can lead to aggression over time because the person has had enough, where we have that one more time someone says something to me, that one more time, and then we have violence occurring. And, that can definitely lead to substance abuse, alcohol dependency. So these are a lot of time to mask the symptoms or, not to deal with the situation. Don't want to identify that there might be something mentally going on for me. Again, leading back to that stigma. You're not that person. So a lot of time people choose to cope by using alcohol or other drugs to get out of that feeling, not want to feel what's going on for them. And we all know it just leads to another problem.
Always, it does. Now, I know that sometimes in our communities, we're not really aware of some of the services that are available to us. Could you first talk about the importance of getting help? Now that we've addressed some of the reasons why we, in our community, we're not as willing to get the help. Could you talk about the importance of getting professional help and seeking professional help? And I know there are people who might be on this live, might be watching, who may not have access to resources, whether it's through insurance coverage or, them not even having the money to get professional help through, a large agency or whatever the case may be. Could you bring some light to some of the resources that are available to us?
Absolutely. It's very important to seek professional help when dealing with a severe persistent mental illness, because a lot of times, our family or our loved ones or friends, if a person is comfortable to share that they're struggling, if they can identify that they are struggling with mental health issues, oftentimes the loved one or family might not have the resources or know how to help. And that can lead to, their own beliefs or their own biases being put into place and making the situation possibly more difficult. So seeking professional help, having a counselor or therapist who have some professional background and is able to share proper tools with the person to make sure that they are being diagnosed appropriately and is getting the proper treatment. A lot of, if you speak with a psychiatrist, psychologist, they will have assessments to be completed, ask numerous questions, speak with your loved one, your support network, to kind of just see what are some of the behaviors that they have witnessed from you as maybe the client. Oftentimes the client might not be able to pick up on their own symptoms or minimize what is really going on for them. So it's good to have loved ones share or come into the counseling office and be of support to the individual in that way. So having that professional help will help the individual to really identify and receive proper diagnosis. So therefore, the treatment plan can really be gauged towards what they're struggling with in order to help them cope and, live rewarding lives. In my experience, some of the resources that are out there that I'm familiar with is, Mental Health America, MHA. They provide a slew of services to individuals who might be struggling with any form of mental health issues. And they're all, in the states of America. So you can Google them and find them in any resource. They have care managers who are available to come and speak with the individual and connect them to therapists, appropriate therapists that they can help with. There's also a mobile team. I work for the mobile mental health team, which is it's kind of like a call center, but individuals can call and discuss whatever triggers that they might be dealing with at the moment. If they feel they might need a in-person, it's not necessarily therapy, but you can speak with a trained professional counselor, a licensed therapist about what's going on in order to cope with, whatever the triggers are for that day and get you connected back to your therapist. And if you don't have a therapist, they can connect you with resources. So therefore you can, if that's something you want to do, get the proper help. Even starting with your doctor is a great place to start. Asking your doctor, I might be dealing with some mental health struggles. Where can I get additional help? If you're in school, starting with your professor, your teacher, going to the principal. Many high school, middle schools have school counselors, guidance counselors. In colleges, there is the counseling center where individuals can go and receive professional help without the worrying if, that's going to, their business is going to go out there. There's also text lines and online support now. So it's very convenient and it kind of decreases some of those barriers where transportation or finance might be an issue for individuals to get the help that they need. So there's a lot of support out there, whether you are bounded at your home and is unable to travel, or if you do have transportation is able to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us. We really appreciate you.
You are very
and we love you.
Love you too. Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It's my pleasure. And I really respect the fact that you are doing this and shedding light on this very, very important topic.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye. Bye. Just to recap, everyone, we welcome one, welcome all to our Real People, Real Lives broadcast. We're discussing mental health and suicide. We're talking about having a holistic approach towards achieving mental wellness. Step one, seeking God, keeping him as the head of our lives, seeking him for hope, seeking him for comfort, but not using that as our sole source of healing. It's also important to get help. As Alicia just said, You know, there's a lot of issues in our communities where we like to keep our business private. You know, we tend to, of course, from our history of slavery, you know, we go through different sources of trauma, and we're just expected to keep quiet and not say anything. But it is important to seek help, to seek professional help, so that you're able to get the proper diagnosis, you're able to get the proper treatment treatment plan to achieve the mental wellness that you need. Now we're going to discuss the next portion, which is taking care of your temple. And before I do that, I'm just going to read comments. Alex says, this is a very important topic, and I often talk out about it with my friends. People look good on the outside in church, yet mentally there are some disturbing influences. That's even before anything spiritual. If anything, it seems as if the mental imbalance is a hindrance to spiritual growth. I also believe that the majority of people may not think of themselves of having some mental distress, so let alone seeking for professional help. I believe this issue has been devastating for our church for a long time, and most people are not comfortable to be transparent about it. Before we move on to the next portion, I definitely agree with you, Alex. You are spot on, completely spot on. A lot of us, we don't want to admit that, yes, we have an issue. Sometimes we don't even want to admit that our family or our friends have an issue. And as I repeated before, mental illness should be taken as seriously as any other illness. Mental illness is an illness, just as cancer is, just as high blood pressure, just as diabetes, and so on and so forth. Just like any other illness, we need to take it seriously. But I think, you know, we're afraid of people looking at us indifferently. We're raised in our culture to be strong, you know, to hide things, to hold things in, because being strong, you know, looking good on the outside, you know, that's what's important, while everything else is falling apart on the inside. And it just causes us to bury it more and more and more. And in our churches, I mean, leaders, it becomes hard for leaders even, who, you know, they go through things, they go through real issues, they go through real triggers, real stressors. But what happens is, you know, they still need to go and they need to smile for everyone. They need to provide hope. They need to provide encouragement, because people lean on them, and it becomes difficult because there's no outlet for them to lean on. So it's very, 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 very important that we be transparent with ourselves. That's the first thing, self-awareness. A philosopher, I can't tell, it was either Aristotle or Socrates. One of them said, know thyself. And it's very important that, you know, we be transparent with ourselves. We be honest with ourselves. When it's not treated, when it's not addressed, it can spiral out of control. And, you know, it's not easy dealing with mental illness. It's not easy, you know, suffering with it. So when you don't treat it, just like it's a cut, just like it's a cold, just like it's a terminal illness or whatever the case may be, when it's not treated, when it's addressed, what happens is it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And it gets to a point where we start to lose control over it. And we get to a point where we don't even know how to cope with it anymore. So it is important that we are transparent, especially in our churches. I do agree it does go beyond faith. And I would even go on to suggest that sometimes we use faith as an excuse to escape from the other reasons why we choose not to seek help. You know, whether it's financial, whether it's us looking strong in front of people and not wanting people to think that we look crazy, you know, whatever those things are, what happens is, you know, we know that we may not be able to afford it. We don't want our family, our friends to look down upon us. You know, or we have demanding jobs, demanding lifestyles. We have family, loved ones that depend on us, you know, and it becomes difficult, because what happens is we say, well, you know, it's not because of those reasons. It's just because as a Christian, I believe in God. And since I believe in God, I have to pray. And we use that to bury every other reason why we choose not to seek help, or why we're afraid to seek help. We use faith even as a reason to bury the fact that we have an issue. And the reality of the situation is mental illness is a human condition. It happens to human beings in our imperfect nature. It's okay to go through things, and sometimes we're not able to handle the things that are thrown at us. And that's why we need the help. We need the guidance from God, number one, as we said before, and we need the help from professionals who God places in our lives to be able to provide the advice, the mentorship to us. So the next portion we're going to discuss is taking care of our mental health, taking care of your temple. I don't know if Herlene is on. If you're on, Herlene, if you could just drop down in the comment section really quick, just so I know you're here. Otherwise, I'm just going to continue on while I wait for her to let me know that she's here. According to 1 Corinthians 16, verse 19 and 20, we're reminded that our bodies are temples of God. Imagine, a lot of us grew up in Pathfinders. A lot of us grew up in adventurers, and we're taught to show reverence in the sanctuary, walk softly in the sanctuary. If you have West Indian parents, Haitian parents, you're not supposed to chew gum. Some of us were not allowed to sleep. We're supposed to be quiet. We're supposed to tiptoe even in the sanctuary. In the same sense, you want to take care of the temple that God has given you. God sees us so sacred that he considers us as a temple, and he has given us the task of keeping that temple sacred. The first temple we need to show reverence to is our bodies, and that's important in achieving mental wellness. Proverbs 17, verse 22, it says, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth up the bones. We have Isaiah 61, verse 3, to console those who mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Sometimes, in our spirit of sadness, in our spirit of grief, in our spirit of distress, in our spirit of anxiety, in our spirit of depression, we tend to just become consumed in our mental illness. And what happens is we become so consumed in it, instead of making the decision to say, you know what, I need to get better. Not every day is going to be peaches and roses. Not every day is going to be a walk in the park, but I'm making the decision to get better. I'm making the decision to, take my steps towards health, towards greatness, towards joy, towards happiness in my own hands. And sometimes we tend to be so consumed in our illness that we would rather just spend the day in bed, even if we know we're able to get up out of the bed. And I know that it's harder, it's easier said than done for some of us. And I want to be very considerate and very sensitive towards people who are going through mental illness. I understand that it can be very, very difficult sometimes to get out of bed. You become so closed up in your own little bubble. You don't want to hang out with your friends anymore. Sometimes you become afraid of your friends. You become afraid of those people that you love the most, your friends, your family. You become afraid of being vulnerable, because you're used to being so strong, as we mentioned before. But it's so important that we learn to take those steps by ourselves towards mental illness, even if it means, taking a walk every day. I know in the Northeast, vitamin D is something that a lot of us lack, because of the fact that, we have the cold seasons that come in and we spend a lot of time indoors. This is a time where you may not always want to spend it alone. You want to spend it in the company of your family, in the company of your friends. It's okay to go to brunch with your girls. It's okay to, sit down and watch sports with your boys. Find an outlet that'll make you laugh, that'll make you smile. When you have a heavy spirit, engage in activities that give you the opportunity to praise God even in times when it's hard. Sometimes praising God through our illness, our pain, sometimes that's just a little bit of relief that we need. So it's important that we take the steps necessary on our own to achieve that mental wellness. So once again, I want to thank those who are just joining us tonight. We're focusing on mental wellness and suicide. And we're looking at having a holistic approach towards achieving mental wellness. First, we're seeking God. We're looking towards him as our refuge, as our strength, as our hope. Second, we are seeking professional help. It is very, very important that you don't try to always self diagnose yourself. Um, you know, don't allow yourself to open up to a doctor. From my experiences, I find that the fact that you're talking to a stranger, there's not really much they can do to judge you, because if you don't like them, you never see them again. You don't have a sense of guilt where, it's a mother or a father or a brother or a sister where you feel like you're disappointing them. They're there to listen. They're there to analyze and look at whatever you may be going through and help you have the proper course of action to achieve your mental wellness. So it's important. First, seek God. Second, seek help. And third, as we said before, take care of your mental health. Take care of the temple, the sacred temple that God has given us to look over. The next, appreciate your village. Okay? Appreciate the village that God has set around you. As I mentioned a little bit before, sometimes we like to close ourselves off. We like to, stay home where it's dark, where it's quiet, where we're just trying to process, where we're just trying to figure things out. And I'm going to add that, Alex, that you bring up an important point. But having your village, and when I refer to your village, there's a quote that says it takes a village to raise a child. In the same sense, if you're trying to achieve mental health, you need your village, you need your support system, your family, your friends, your loved ones to hold you up. It is so very important. There will be days that you won't want to eat, and it's going to be your friends, your family, your loved ones who will come and spoon feed you if they need to. There will be days you feel like you can't be left alone, and it'll be your friends, your family, your support system that will either stay on the phone with you, up until 2, 3 in the morning when you fall asleep. It's your friends, family that will rub your feet, rub your back, run their hands through your hair if they need to until you fall asleep, until you're in that place of peace. Lean on your village. Lean on your friends. Lean on your family. Because remember, they are your reminder that you matter. They're your reminder that your presence on this earth is important. Colossians 3 verse 12 to 14 says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them together in perfect unity. And Jean Mark, if you are on, just comment or send in your request so I can bring you on. This is just a reminder that we need to show kindness towards each other. And we should also be able to distinguish those who do love us, those who do want the best for us. Sometimes it is hard because you don't want to be vulnerable. You don't want to be in a place where you feel weak. But your loved ones are the people where it's okay to feel weak around them because they know you so well. They know how you cope. They know what makes you tick. I'm just going to read Alex's comment again. If I may add, having healthier friendships is paramount to the healing process. As you mentioned, having people around you who actually allow you to go through your dark tunnel as they pray and support you. Perfect feedback, Alex. It's very, very important to have a support system that holds you up when you can't hold yourself up. Jean Mark, what's going on, bro?
What's going on? What's going on? I'm really enjoying this. I'm really proud of you. Seriously, good setup.
Thank you. Thank you. Jean Mark is the founder of A Different World Home Services, which offers a variety of training and treatment modalities to enhance the individual's optimal level of functioning. They focus on improving the individual's skills so that they may focus as independently as possible. Gene Mark is a phenomenal teacher. He's my big brother. He has his master's in special education, and he's also a mental health case manager. And he's going to talk about the importance of the village and the support that they provide to a person going through mental illness. The floor is yours. And we encourage you to ask questions, like and share with your friends, and ask as many questions, express your concerns.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the introduction. Your introduction and so I appreciated you giving me that nice introduction there. So to start off, I'll say what I want to talk about the village.
No problem.
So we know that this is a big problem. So what we do now when our
is everybody, give me 1 second. Is everybody able to hear Gene Mark? I think you're cutting
if I put on my headphones,
in and out on my line.
Can you hear me clearly or no?
Now I can hear you. Perfect.
Okay, I could put on my headphones to make it better. Not a problem. Give me a second. Get my headphones.
It was just cutting the connection. Okay, I think the connection was cutting in and out. That's what was going on.
I don't know what's going on.
Okay, so we have one person who says they can't hear you clearly.
Okay, hold up.
Are we able to hear Gene Mark clearly? Are we good?
All right, we'll rectify this.
Nope, still cutting in and out. Still cutting in and out. Can we hear Gene Mark? Or is it my connection?
Sure.
Is it my connection? Are we able to hear Gene Mark? You want to try hanging up and calling back again?
Sure.
Okay. It's still cutting. Yeah. Try hanging up and calling back again. All right. So as we're waiting for Gene Mark, to come back on, I want to welcome our new viewers. Welcome to Real People, Real Lives, where we talk about real topics that affect our young people in today's day and age. Today, is our second part of our 2-week series, When Just Praying Is Not Enough. We're discussing mental health and suicide. Our goal today, as mentioned before, is to have a holistic approach to achieving mental wellness and mental healing. We first want to seek God. We want to lean on Him for our peace, for our comfort. The second thing, we want to be able to seek professional help. Those are people that God has placed in our lives to help us, to support us, to hold us up. Okay. So it's important that we seek professional help. The third thing, as Gene Mark is coming back on, is to take care of our temple. God has given us this sacred temple called our bodies. It's the first temple that we need to show reverence to, take care of it. As mentioned before, it's okay, go out for a walk. Exercise might be a good outlet to get steam out. Making sure that we're putting things into our bodies that are not harmful. Alcohol, drugs, those are harmful to even our mental state. And what happens is, when we have too much of that, what happens is we tend to depend on that as a source of healing for our mental illness. And that's where it becomes more unhealthy and more detrimental. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of our temple. We're being good to the temple that God has given us to upkeep. Gene Mark, are you back? Are you on? If you can just let me know that you're here. I think he's, can you send me a request again? Gene Mark, we invite you to like and share with your friends, share with your family, your loved ones who are on Facebook, as we're waiting for Gene Mark to come on. And then we have, awesome. And then we have our last step, which is our next step, which is the village that is meant to support us, to hold us up. As Gene Mark is coming on, I do want to emphasize that it is very important to show kindness to people. Sometimes we may speak towards or speak harshly towards our friends, our family, our loved ones, and we do not know what's going on in here. If we're married, we're in relationships, sometimes we count on our loved ones to be our source of peace. If I'm having a bad day, I want my friends, my parents, boyfriend, husband, best friend, I want to lean on them as my source of peace. So it's important that we show kindness always, because we never know what people may be going through. And it might be just your love, your affection, your encouragement, your hugs, your hello, your goodbye, your smile that has that person, not giving up on themselves or keeps them going another day. Gene Mark, are we good? Are we
All right.
good?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Awesome. Perfect.
Jeez, whew, what a hard thing. Well, thank you. I'm finally back. So I forgot where I left off, but by the way, I wanted to say I'm happy that my fiance just joined in. It is our anniversary, so happy anniversary. Love you.
Happy anniversary.
Join us. Appreciate it. So back to the topic that I was speaking about in terms of the whole village raising us, the village joining in. Mental health, it doesn't just impact, just one person. A person dealing with mental health is going to impact everyone around them. I don't care if it's your spouse, if it's your parents, if it's your friends, if it's your siblings. It has an impact on each one of us. So today I'm going to cover really what these impacts are. How does it look like, and what can you do from the standpoint that you're in? So, for example, as a parent, if you have a child that has a mental illness, well, you must understand what that parent is going through. First of all, they have blame. They have a lot of guilt that they're carrying. So you got to think about it. If I have a child that has mental health, I'm thinking, well, did they get this from me? Is it from my family? Where did I go wrong? So that grief and guilt that you carry actually could lead you to turn up having some sort of mental health issues later on down the line. So I always urge people that have those that are dealing with this issue to seek help themselves. I think that everyone should be getting some sort of therapy, especially if you have those conditions going on. I know the stigma in our community is that, we don't really believe in therapy. We don't really support those. And sometimes when we see, especially Haitians, when we see somebody dealing with mental health issues, automatically we equate it with, oh, voodoo, So I know that's one thing that people around me have always stated. So I always encourage people that are dealing with it, whether it's directly or indirectly, to seek help. Taking of it from a spouse's standpoint, can you imagine being married to somebody and one day waking up to someone completely different mentally? The body's still there, but their mind is completely different. So now you got to think about, you had a vision before you got married to that person of how you wanted your life to be. And all of a sudden, you have a completely different life now. And that's going to bring grief on both partners, whether it's you that has a mental issue or the person that's even dealing with it with you every day. Also, you got to think about it as a sibling. Your brother has something or your sister has something. Now you're thinking of it, oh my God. First of all, you have the embarrassment that you carry around, the stigma that, oh my God, something is wrong with your brother or your sister. Then you got to think about, okay, what else? Am I going to get this condition as well? So you have that fear in you, that thinking that, eventually I could be the one that actually falls into the same path. So there's a lot of guilt and grief that is associated with just the person having it. Now imagine you as a person dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. What do? You have the stigma of, you don't want people to label you. Nobody wants to be labeled. Labeling is an issue that you see in schools. You see it in our society. We don't want to be labeled as anything else but what we feel that we are. So at times, we're afraid to seek out the help. But you as a family member, you need to watch out for those signs. When the behavior changes, certain behaviors such as sleeping habits, eating habits, those type of
Mhm.
things to look at, and see, okay, something's changed. And what I would suggest is, instead of just going by what you think, go by what you see and write it down. And as you write it down, also confirm with others that are around to say, hey, have you noticed a change in Johnny? Have you noticed that, he's eating less? Have you noticed that he's sleeping more? Have you noticed that he refuses to go to work? Have you noticed that he's just
Mm.
resting all the time? Those are signs that you could actually look at. And eventually, let's just say you get them to the doctor's office, you actually have proof right there. You have material that you can present to say, hey, based on what I've noticed for the last week,
Mhm.
what I'm noticing is that there's a change in sleeping patterns. What I'm noticing that there's a change in behavior. So you need something tangible to present when you go there, just for the simple fact that that person may not be able to express himself or verbalize exactly what's going on with them. Many people dealing with mental health don't have a clue what's going on until it's too late. It's one of those things that I always say it's the invisible bully that they're dealing with. So you wake
Mhm.
up and all of a sudden you see things drastically change and you don't know what's going on with your mind. Can you just imagine living in that cell, living in a sense, in a prison that you're living in? That's sometimes what they're going through, and they don't really have understanding of it. So you that's
Mhm.
around them, that's of sound mind, it kind of falls to you and kind of your responsibility to actually help them, guide them through that process. And there's so many different resources that are available for people dealing with those issues. There's a national organization by the name of NAMI. It's the National Alliance of Mental Illness. They
Mm.
actually provide services free of charge, 24 hours a day. You could call in. They actually provide classes in the afternoon that both families and the person dealing with the issues, they could attend themselves. So there are a lot of support out there. Some of the solutions that I wrote down, that I believe will be a great tool in terms of helping a family member that's going through it is, first, is don't go at it alone. There's a whole bunch of people in this world dealing with mental health issues. To be honest
Mhm.
with you, a lot of us have mental health issues. Some of it is kind of submerged right now, where it's not to the degree where it's causing us to alter our days, but a lot of
Mhm.
us are dealing with issues, but some are more severe. There's a lot of organizations out there aimed at providing those services. So when you're going through this issue, don't think you have to deal with it alone, because half the times you may not be equipped with the knowledge and information available for you to even support that person. Second thing I wrote down is, don't get into fights. Let's be honest. Helping somebody with any sort of mental issues, well, let's rewind. Helping somebody, period, that's going through anything can be difficult. Now,
Yep.
help somebody with a mental issue that doesn't quite understand their emotions, their feelings, don't quite understand exactly what's happening internally, that can be very frustrating. So I say,
Mhm.
don't fight, but learn to listen and also learn to leverage. And what
Mhm.
I mean by leverage is this. Say, for instance, you have somebody that, as a parent, you have a child that's going through this issue where now you see that they're deteriorating. You could use certain things at your house as leverage. Say you have, I don't know, Xbox. Say you're dealing with a child. They have a gaming system. You could say,
Mhm.
well, if you're able to show me some sort of, if you're able to open up, or if you're willing to even go to therapy even twice a week, I'll buy you a new game. Although it may seem very minor to us, but if that's something that they feel is in their benefit, they like playing video games, they like that, that might be an incentive for them to be like,
Meeting them halfway.
exactly. I may not really want to go, but because I want this new game that came out, I'll give it a try just so, I'll make them happy and go, and I know I'll get some games. And the thing is, when they're there, you really don't know what could come out of it. You don't know what sort of support, because these professionals, in this field, they know what they're doing. They know how to get the information out. They know how to get people to open up. So it's our job, if we're not the professionals, the only job that we have is to get them there. Once we get them
Mhm.
there, that's half the battle. Now, when you get back home, you need reinforcements, and which goes to my third part, which would be learning the mental health field. If you have somebody that's dealing with this issue, it's your responsibility and duty to go out there and seek out the information. Don't be ignorant to the facts. Don't be one of those people that's just assuming, saying, oh, voodoo and all this stuff. It's not always the case. There are things that you can learn, the basic things. And also, I'll say this, as Christians, we have a different way of approaching things. As people of fear, that has that extra component to us, that has that extra support in God, anything
Mhm.
that we're dealing with, we know the central number one thing that's going to help is prayer.
Mhm.
Not prayer alone, but prayer actually helps us to cope. I know I have a friend right now that's dealing with some issues, and we pray every night. And by praying every night, he'll tell you, you know what, this battle is becoming easier because I know it's not that I'm not going through it anymore, but I know when I go through it, I'm not alone. And, the Bible speaks
Exactly.
about the fact that Christ lives in us. So because Christ
Mm-hmm.
lives in us, anything that we're going through, we don't need to necessarily fear because we're not alone in it. So I think that as Christians, we definitely need to always think about that when we're coming to support somebody. We must pray, not only pray with them, pray for them, bring a community together to pray with them. That's how we're going to find some sort of support outside of course, the professionals that exist. And the last part is, think of this as a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're going to have those days when things seem to be so
Mm-hmm.
great. Like, oh, man, we made some great strides today. Oh, Johnny is starting to be much better. And then the next day Johnny calls you, he starts from ground zero. Johnny is right back to where we first started, where Johnny was starting to tell you, man, I don't know what's going on. When you just told Johnny, this is what's going on with you, Johnny. You need to get help. Think of it as a marathon because it's going to be a long road. There's going to be some easy days. There's going to be some
Mm-hmm.
extremely hard, but we need to be very consistent in the support that we give them. And like I said, you yourself, as you're helping them, I advise you to get some help yourself because it's going to
Yep.
weigh down. It's going to weigh down on you, and as soon enough, you're going to want to give up. So get some help, get some support. And really, that's, I don't want to make it too long today. That's really my message in terms of that. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to
Now,
answer.
here's one thing I want to ask you. I know we
Sure.
know the importance of providing the support to the person who's going through it. I think the scary thing for certain individuals who suffer with depression or anxiety, especially if you're suffering with anxiety, sometimes you're afraid, and or even schizophrenia or PTSD, you become most afraid of the people who are in your circle.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not everybody who is trying to be there for you when you're the most vulnerable who is actually on your team, because in the future they might even try to use that against you. So how do you distinguish, and this might be a tough question, but how do you distinguish the weeds versus the good fruit, those who are really for you and those who might have ulterior motives in being there for you?
That's a very good question. Now, of course, coming from the standpoint of someone that's dealing with the issue, I've never dealt with it, so it's going to be hard. But I'll give you my standpoint on it. A person that's going to be there for you, as opposed to those that are just being nosy or just want to pry into your business, is going to be very consistent. Because, like
Mm,
I said before, because it's such a tough thing to deal with, if you call me the first time we have a conversation and I'm just like lost, like, most people dealing with schizophrenia or bipolar disease and things like that, they tend to be very, how would I put it, irrational. Things don't really
mm-hmm,
line, things don't typically make sense. So someone that's just being nosy and not really care or are there to really give you that support that you need, they're not going to be consistent. They might call you the first time, might call you the second time, but it surely won't be something consistent. So I would imagine someone
mm-hmm.
that's dealing with that issue over time, because of their paranoia, would easily be able to tell, you know what, you're not really here for me. But someone that's consistently going to be there, consistently taking the bashing, taking the cursing, taking the pushback
Mm-hmm.
that they get, and yet they're able to suck up their pride and come right back because of that genuine love that they have for you.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it.
It's
We
my pleasure.
appreciate it
I'm really enjoying what you're doing. We speak about these type of things every day.
all the time.
Anything you need, I'm fully here to support you. Thank you so much. And Keats, unfortunately, was not able to make it. He's on the road right now, and I don't think
Understandable.
he'll sign up. But he definitely had a lot of insights that he wanted to put in this. So hopefully, if we have another segment, he'll be able to join in.
Definitely. We look forward to it. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you so much. My pleasure. Have a good one.
You too. All right, so we just discussed, thank you once again, Jean Marc. Welcome to our new viewers, those who are just joining us. We're discussing mental health and suicide. We just discussed the importance of having your village, your support system, and also providing support to someone who's going through depression or anxiety or PTSD or a different mental illness. It's very important to be understanding, as Jean Marc said. In our churches, we always lean on our faith. It's important to pray with them. Be willing to listen. Sometimes when we jump to conclusions and we provide solutions really quick, we neglect to really pay attention to what that person has to say. And as Jean Marc said, sometimes it's just observing, writing down what you observe, writing down the changes in behavior, writing down the fact that, a person who loves to spend time with their friends, now they just want to stay home. They want to spend the entire day in bed. They want to spend the entire day home, or it's just a go to work, go home. Or if they're skipping days at work, if they're doing things that are off of their routine, if they were going to church every weekend and now you barely see them, if they were someone, very active in a certain point, sometimes even social media can speak to it. Sometimes people go through things, and the person who's posting every 2 seconds on Facebook, and all of a sudden it stops. It might not just be that they're busy. It could be that they're going through something, and it doesn't hurt to take note of those and also reach out to see how they're doing, to see what they're up to, because that could make the world of a difference. I do want to pause for a quick second as we move into our next segment. I want to pause for a quick second. Is Obel here? Is Obel on? I don't know if I'm able to bring Obel on, but I want to let everyone know that we have a huge event coming up, and one of the people on our team, Obel, are you able to come on, Obel, and tell us about this huge movement that we're going to have on March 31st? It's a mental health day where we are having a movement across different states, New York, Florida, Massachusetts, at different churches. All right, Obel, are you able to send a request so you can hop on, so that you can give us more information? This is the Save Souls event, and our purpose is to save souls. In our churches, we have so many young people who are dying spiritually, emotionally, mentally. They are here, but inside they're gone. And we want them to understand that there is a support system for them, that we will not only pray for them, but we will provide them with the counsel, the mentorship that they need. There are professionals in our church community, our church families, that are able to provide the support that we need, and we want to bring that to the attention of some of our young people who might be struggling and dealing with mental health. So as Obel is coming in, she is actually the person who is heading this movement. Obel, if you could just, for a couple of minutes, just tell us about this amazing movement that we have going on coming up on March 31st. Hi. You look like you just woke up.
No, I wasn't. I was following. Thank you for bringing me on. You're doing a great job. And this, as you guys know, this is the second part of the mental health event. So, as you mentioned, this is a very important subject. It is extremely important to me, specifically in the church, because I realize that some of the church members, I honestly think some of them are aware. I think that in our generation, some of them are aware, but they're just pretty much neglecting that subject. I held that event in one of the churches that I attended, and I realized the necessity of it because of the young people's request and how they mentioned what they mentioned and the questions that were being asked, and the way that they handled having therapists, where I invited a therapist, an educator, and someone else to come in and talk to them, and their responses to it, it was phenomenal, to the point where I'm like, okay, you know what, this is something that is needed. And I believe that the Holy Spirit brought this upon my heart. So this Safe Soul event, what is going to be doing is, or what's going to be happening is that we'll be having different therapists or professionals, I would say in general, in the mental health field, to come out to different churches, and that will be happening in 4 different states. I believe New York, Georgia, Boston, Massachusetts, and Florida, where they'll be coming in to answer questions, to pretty much educate our the public or our churches about mental illness, and specifically we'll say suicide prevention, which tonight we'll be focusing more about that. I believe that is coming later on, and we'll have, hopefully our guests are able to come on to pretty much talk about that subject, because it's extremely sensitive, but we need to talk about it. But yeah, so they will be helping our young people, I'll say our young adults in our churches who battles with depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, but mainly we already know some of these diseases can lead to, suicide, and a lot of us don't know. So we pretty much say, oh, well, they're just going to hell, or why they have to go that route, why this had to happen to them. But we're not knowledgeable enough to know the reasons why these things are happening and how to prevent those causes, and how to pretty much start with the prevention aspect. And health, as you all know, prevention is key, because that's where you start, so that your body can, as soon as you recognize certain symptoms or certain things that are happening with your body, you need to address them. And I feel mental illness is one of the things that we neglect, because we don't believe that, well, too often I believe that the reason why it is being neglected is because the signs are not, some people who don't know, the signs are being ignored. So they're like, oh, well, that's part of life. I'm supposed to feel depressed. I mean, I have 5 kids. I can't pay for my rent. I'm unemployed, or, things are happening to my life. I've been raped. I've been molested. So they feel like it's okay to go through certain things alone and just deal with it because of the things that have been happening to them. But like we said, there are different aspects and different causes to those those who suffer with mental illness. People probably have a chemical imbalance, and if they have, don't have enough dopamine. So there are things that we need to be educated about in our community. That way we know exactly how to handle it. So these professionals who will be coming on, they will be there from Saturday, the 31st of March, and they will educate you, answer some questions. Well, we do want to make sure that I say we will have a video giving more details, is that confidentiality is going to be a key. So what we are working on is pretty much helping those people get a phone, like I'll say a line, where they're able to text those questions or their concerns through that phone. That way they won't fear the judgment from the public, because we know our community. They look at you and they're like, oh my gosh, she wanted to kill herself. Oh my gosh, she's dealing with bipolar disorder. Oh, she crazy. This is how we talk. And so we want to make sure that if you are in Georgia, if you are in Florida, if you are going to be in Massachusetts, Boston, to make sure to be there and save the day. We'll have a flyer, we'll pass it out, we'll have different people come in. And I am so happy to say that we'll be collaborating with different federations. So what I would like to say is that the federation in Boston will be part of it. The federation in Georgia will be part of it. The federation in Florida will be part of it, as well as the federation in New York. So this is going to be huge, where we're going to gather 4 different federations and different ministries. SOP ministry is going to also be part of it. PDF ministry is also a part of it. So meaning this is extremely going to bring a mass effect on our social media and bring a lot of awareness, so that people can know these are the issues that we need to speak loudly and boldly about and address in our churches. We cannot ignore these issues no longer. So please come out. Bring someone that that is in crisis, or bring yourself if you have any questions about a family member who's dealing with these things. What I would say is we're going to try our best to make sure that we provide resources that way when you get out of, that program, you're not left empty-handed. You're not just going to get all these informations and feel like, okay, so now what do I do now? So these therapists are going to be there, and what we're going to make sure we do is have us resources. That way, if you really need to follow up on certain things that you're dealing with, or you need to see a therapist, or you need to see a medical doctor, or you feel like, hey, I'm battling bipolar disorder and I feel like I'm bipolar. I see the signs, but I don't know how to handle it. Come on and address these things. And like I said, it will make sure that these are confidential, because our young people, sometimes what it is that we're afraid to speak up. And not even just our young people, some of us are not able to trust our own parents, because not everybody want to sit here and tell mom, I've been so depressed that I'm drinking alcohol every day, or I'm popping pills. Nobody's going to admit that to their mom or their dad, because obviously if they're not young enough, if they're not old enough, well, even if they're old enough, some of our Haitian parents, instead of helping that person, they will smack them. Something like, seriously, oh, they will call you out of your name, or they will say certain things to you that will probably drag the situation to be worse. I'm not saying all parents do it. I'm just saying some parents who know better, they will come out and help their kid. But even if they know better, sometimes their kid is reluctant, because there's a sense of, yeah, I don't think I can feel vulnerable enough in that space to tell my mom or my father that I'm struggling deeply and I need some medical help, or I need spiritual help, or I need a counselor. So not everybody is really going to be that comfortable to do that. So what that event, we call it Safe Soul, where we're gonna save these souls, not just mentally. I mean, we're gonna save them not just spiritually and physically, but we also want to make sure that we're saving them mentally, which is extremely important. So guys, I encourage you to be a part of this event. If you have any more questions, as I said before, we'll have a video coming up hopefully by the end of this month. That way you guys can share it with your friends. We'll also have a flyer ready, and we can pretty much make this event great. And one of our members just jumped on, I think it's Ans also is going to be part of it, which is, he's the leader of SOP, so he'll also be one of the leaders coordinating with us for that event and the great purpose.
Now we have a question as to what churches this event's going to be held at. If you do you have any confirmations on some of the churches?
Yes, I do, and I will be pulling that information right now, and then even name some of the federations for the matter.
So once again, we just want to welcome those who just dropped in with us. We're discussing mental health and suicide awareness. Obel is here to share a major event that we're going to be having on March 31st across several states. It is a Save Souls event, just bringing more awareness to mental illness, and as well as suicide prevention. This is going to be occurring in New York and Massachusetts and Florida. In addition to other states, we have our youth federations who are involved in this movement. As Obel is bringing up that list of churches, just to recap, we've just been speaking about having a holistic approach to achieving mental wellness, not solely relying on prayer, as it is important. That is something we very much believe in, but also acknowledging that God places people in our lives to help us, to mentor us, to counsel us, to advise us. And so it's important to seek professional help. It's important to take care of our temple as well, making sure that the things that you feed yourself, even mentally, spiritually, the things you watch, the music you listen to, the food you eat, the activities you get yourself involved in, you want to make sure that it's holistic, it's healthy. It's healthy, it's holistic, it's healthy. So that's another step. And also acknowledging your village, allowing them to support you. And also, if you happen to be someone who knows that you have a loved one who is suffering from mental illness, also providing that support to them, being understanding, being willing to listen, paying attention to the signs. Alicia says, I agree, a lot of us have heads, you're only 10 or etc. What kind of problems can you have shutting down the opportunity to have that discussion, setting the tone around such conversations without awareness? Setting the tone is very much important. We want our young people to feel comfortable, and that's one of our bigger goals for this event, for the Save Souls event. We want young people to feel comfortable. We want them to feel safe. We want them to know that there are people who are there to support them. There are people who are there to hold them up. And, it's not everyone who they go to that's gonna give them backlash, that's gonna judge them. So we want to create a safe haven for our young people in our churches. Obel, are we good?
Yes. Yes. I believe I have some of the churches, but some still need to be pretty much. I need to make sure that those are confirmed, but I do have a couple churches that I know are confirmed. I want to start with, so I have Florida's is going to be at Camp Hawthorne and Gainesville, because Phasia is actually going to be sponsoring or going to be collaborating with us. So on that afternoon, Phasia will be happening throughout that entire weekend from, I believe, 30th to April 1st, I believe. I'm not, yeah, I think that's what it is, because it's that entire weekend. So the 31st, we'll be having the event in the afternoon, at 4 to 6, and
Okay.
in between those time, it's going to be happening simultaneously in those churches. Now that's for Florida. For, I think, Georgia, it was said that Ebenezer Franchise Church will probably be the church we'll be hosting it at. And for New York, I believe New York has different locations that entire weekend as well. As we know, some of them are not too close, but in Spring Valley, we'll be having it in Mount Sinai. And I believe in Brooklyn. I don't know if you have that information, which I think you should.
I don't know if Brooklyn's confirmed yet.
Okay. But I know some other people are working on that. And as well as, which one I left out? Boston, Massachusetts. It might possibly be happening at Brockton Temple. So we'll just confirm all those information. All those information will be confirmed through a flyer, because once the flyer is up, everybody will know what's happening. But I just want to make sure you guys know that this is extremely important, and I hope that I can hear that you guys attended and that it was a great experience, and that it brought awareness, and that we're still working towards that goal, and we can pretty much be more aware of our state. So I don't know if you wanted me to stay and say more.
Awesome. No, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into our next portion and actually call up our next caller.
Good.
And I'll continue to remind our viewers about our event coming up in March. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for even piloting a movement like this, because it is very important and it's very much needed in our community.
All right, hon. We'll see.
I'll be here. Alrighty. Thank you. All right. So now we're going to move into the next part of our broadcast, which is the topic of suicide. I'm pretty sure some of us have heard of cases of suicide if we have not been directly affected by suicide. It's a very sensitive topic. I'm going to call on Maria, Sister Maria, if you're here, if you can. Sister Maria, are you still here? Maria Cadet. She is a mental health professional, a doctor in the field, has a lot of experience with mental health, working with a variety of clients in terms of mental health. So we're going to see if she's here. Let us know that you're here, Sister Maria. Awesome. And we are adding her. And we once again want to thank everybody who's just now joining us. Our topic tonight is mental wellness and suicide awareness. We want people to know that you're not going through it alone. Going through mental illness, dealing with thoughts of suicide, it's very, very tough. It's a tough journey, but there are people who God places in our lives to help bring us away from that. Okay, and we're waiting. We're trying to see if Sister Maria is coming on. So, as Sister
Sister Maria comes on, I just want our viewers to think about suicide, in the sense of, are you able to call in again? Is everyone able to see me? I'm hearing that the connection is cutting. Can you send one more request? Is everybody able to see me? Is everyone able to hear me? Let me see if I can try to bring her on again. Is everyone able to see me? Click the like button or share. Drop in the comment section.
Okay, here I am.
She's here.
Sorry.
Awesome. Yay.
Can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes, I can. Can everybody hear Sister Maria? If we can just say yes or hit the like button. Okay, so we're just gonna, okay, so we have a yes. All right, so we're going to move right along. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And we're getting
Okay.
yeses and we're getting likes, so we can hear you.
All right. So thank you, Juliet, for spearheading this project. I have to say, I was a little bit reluctant when Juliet first asked me to join, but I'm glad I did because this is such an important subject. I want to go back to some of the things that has been discussed thus far. You brought up a statistic, Julie, I believe, in terms of why suicide is so high in Black people and why Black people don't seek help. I know that I believe it was Miss Sharp who spoke about it, but I would like to add a couple more items.
Sure.
The Black community actually is facing what we call low education rate, the level of poverty, the lack of awareness, the social stressors, and the Black people tend to be at a disadvantage the level of substance use, instability in the homes, the denial, the exposure, the anger, domestic violence, all these things that we face as a community, whether it is in the Christian community or even in the Black community as a whole. These are the stumbling blocks really hindering us seeking the help and really reaching out and being open. And what I would like to speak to is the fact that as a church community, and since we are addressing young people, is the fact that the community does not allow us to be just human. I think that we don't like to speak to anybody's humanity. The expectation is that we're going to be perfect. We're going to be perfect children. We're going to be perfect adolescents, perfect young adults, and perfect, that our imperfections we are not allowed to show them. So if somebody is a child, is actually, for instance, running around the church and kind of the label you get, you disordered. It cannot be like you super active. You have to be that disordered child. Or if you are somebody like if your parents are very very involved in the church and they're very well known in the church, you're not allowed to just be yourself because you are always attached to you somebody's child because your parents are elders who say you this pastor's child, you this elder's child, you this deacon's child. So your humanity, your person, your individuality is basically overshadowed. So you're having all these conversations in your head because that's where it starts. I know people think that the heart now is, when I do presentations, speak of that difference between the heart as a membrane that pumps blood and the brain, which is really the foundation and the core, the center, the epicenter of the human life. So you start having these conversations in your mind about why you're not worthy, why you're not good enough, and why you can't be. So you struggle to look for who you are and whose you are, and you start finding yourself a stranger among your people. So you start questioning whether you belong or where you belong. So it makes it very difficult. I know, I cannot recall who spoke about self-awareness. I think it was you or Jen Mark, but I was taking notes as you guys were speaking. When you speak of self awareness, it's important. It's hard to have self awareness when you don't even know who you are growing up in a church where so much is expected of you, except for you to be the person that you truly are inside, to even speak of the struggles that you have. And depression doesn't come overnight. This is something that grows slowly and festers, again, because you're not allowed to be the person that you are, that you could be, and that you can expose yourself, your vulnerability, because you're not given that platform to be vulnerable, to just be human, because you're expected to be perfect. So you kind of hide all these things that you're struggling with. You're expected to have the perfect grades, to go to the perfect school, to have the perfect career. So everything, yes, we are called to perfection, but I think that our Christian community seems to forget that perfection is something that is achieved daily. That's something that you are born with. So I believe that's where we come short in terms of addressing the difficulties, the challenges that we have amongst ourselves as young adults, as children, and as adults. I I know that Jean Mark spoke of the relationship aspect of the village piece of things, where, and he's saying that you married to someone, all of a sudden the person becomes someone different. The person doesn't change overnight, because mental illness is not something, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, that just happens. It's something that develops, that somebody grows. You may not have noticed the signs. And I think that what's important of all the things that we spoke about tonight is really to recognize the signs and to know when to get help. And so recognizing the signs, if you have someone, as Juliet had mentioned, they start withdrawing, they start hiding, they start basically covering, or they were involved and they're no longer involved, they were this, they were that. So it's never too late until that person is dead, as long as there is breath. And that's why suicide prevention is so important, because as long as there is breath, there is hope of getting that person help. Because insight, so instead of talking about self-awareness, I think it's important to discuss insight. Insight is really getting that understanding that something is wrong. When that light turns on and say, you know what, something is wrong, then I need to get help. So when do you get that insight? Because there's a stigma associated with mental health. So no one wants to say I'm depressed. No one wants to say, well, I have an addiction. No one wants to talk about these things. So they stay in the background. We hide them in the closet until we can't hide them anymore. And they burst and they come out, and then everybody's like, oh, this person is crazy. All of a sudden you've changed. No, the change doesn't happen overnight. You've always been this person that you've been struggling with. You've been trying to hide it because you've always wanted to be perfect. Hence the reason why a lot of our young people, they run away from the church, because when they cannot sustain or maintain that perfect picture, then they find themselves no longer worthy. They run, and they confuse what is expected of them from God and what the church is expecting of them, because God tells us that He expects us to come free and to just give ourselves to Him and kind of just open ourselves and allow Him to take control. So it's called total surrender. That's what God expects of us. So that idea that He's expecting us to be perfect, that's human made. Yes, we are called to perfection. Jesus calls us to perfection, but the only way that perfection can be achieved is by remaining connected to the source, and that source is Jesus. And we talk about how prayer is important. Prayer is important, but is it enough? When do we recognize that prayer is not enough? I think that when you are praying and you still have these thoughts in your mind, because everything is in your subconscious reminding you that you are not good enough. When do you recognize that you're living in a home where parents are always fighting? There's always some type of disagreement, or your dad is cheating on your mom, or your mom is cheating on your dad. And on Saturday morning, there's no cohesiveness. Nobody's praying in the home. And Saturday morning, everybody gets dressed very nicely, go to church. We don't talk about it. Yet dad is beating mom, or mom is beating dad. And then all of a sudden, sudden the children grow, they become adults, and it's like, whoops, they're no longer in the church. Oh, we didn't know. That's because we don't allow people to be human. And I think that that's where, when we talk about praying, we pray, but what is it are we praying for? Are we praying only so God can take it away? Or are we praying so that he can put people in our lives so they can lead us to get that help, to get that support, or maybe to open somebody's eyes to say, Lord, send someone to kind of deliver me. Like you spoke about the importance of having the village, and that's where I think, Jen, you asked earlier, how to recognize whether somebody is truly in your corner or that person is there just to mind your business. It's important to be open. It's also important to know how to choose your friend. I believe somebody commented having positive friend is very important, because one of the things that lead people to commit suicide is when they are exposed to suicidal behaviors. They are exposed, a lot of children, like we have some trends going on where young children are self-mutilating because their friends are self-mutilating, because their friends are suicidal. So they start to emulate their friends' behavior. So the village is important. It's also recognizing those signs and also knowing how to just be understanding and loving. Because if somebody comes to you and they try to justify how you feel, they try to tell you how you're supposed to feel, that person is not coming with the right spirit. When you know somebody's in your corner, the person who accepts you for who you are and is able to say, you know what, I am here for you. I can give you the information. This is what I know. Let me know when you're ready for me to help you. And there's not criticizing you. Because when someone is going out, because I believe you guys mentioned schizophrenia, you mentioned bipolar, there are so many different mental health condition. That depression is what people speak of most, but those are very challenging mental health disorders, especially if you have somebody who's struggling with bipolar disorders. Their behavior can be very consuming and very overwhelming for the people dealing with them. So people don't tend to want to deal with them because they are so, for lack of better word, repulsive, because they tend to be sometimes verbally aggressive, physically aggressive, and by the time they are diagnosed with bipolar disorders, they've already dabbling in substances, so it gets very complex and very complicated. Somebody who's schizophrenic, like Juliet was saying, you're not trusting the people around you, so it makes it very difficult for people to kind of deal with you, because again, you're erratic and your thoughts are not logical. So there are so many components to what lead people, again, to get that support or not have that community intertwined and supporting them. So for some, if you know someone who's struggling with depression, is really be there for them. So while you praying with them, you also pray for them, because the spirit of depression is nothing different than when somebody's feeling despondent, you're feeling down, is the thoughts that are occurring in that mind that are reminding you. So the only way you can rebuke them is again by insight. Then you have the self-awareness that you gain through insight, and by having the support system that you need, and also through prayer and supplication, because that's the spirit that needs to be rebuked. I know many people who deal with depression, and what you give them as a tool is really how to stop their thoughts, to kind of reverse it, and really learn to take control of that racing mind that tells them, you're not good enough. You're not, so really learning to change their behavior and their interactions, because everybody's trigger is different. I know that Alicia, I believe is her name, spoke earlier about when somebody she used the example of when somebody is sexually abused, their triggers can be so, just a plethora of things as to what can trigger them. And for our Haitian parents, like I'm speaking to predominantly Haitian community, but I could say Caribbean community, because not only affecting the Haitian community, when you look at the Caribbean community as a whole, parents don't tend to tell their children about their past, about the trauma they sustain, about with all the emotional, the physical, the sexual abuse. So they carry all these baggages, and suppressed emotion is manifested through anger, sometimes through violence. So when these emotions are
Mm-hmm.
suppressed, because they learn from their parents, remember, children model after their parents. You don't give what you don't have.
Yep.
So they are basically bringing on the baggage that they've carried with them because somebody along the way told them, toughen up, don't talk about it. So we have all these taboos that we don't talk about in
Mm-hmm.
terms of, molestation. So many children are being molested when they were growing up. So now they carry all these things with them,
Yep.
and emotionally they are disconnected. So they become disconnected adults that now they in the church, they see you, they're reacting to maybe certain things that you're doing or saying that is really triggering
Mm-hmm.
them, and not being equipped, not knowing what's going on internally in their internal clock because they don't have that insight into what
Yep.
happened to them. So now they lash out, they criticize, they become
Mm-hmm.
busybodies, and it becomes again green. It's an infestation because all these
Mm-hmm.
suppressed emotions, all these things that are not talked about, are carried on over, and we pass it on generation to generation. So and then none is,
Yep.
I think that what's important with what you guys are doing, I think is very valuable, is not only bringing awareness in term not only for prevention. I think that also educating the older population, the Caribbean
Mm-hmm.
population, the Black population
Agreed.
is really this, it's basically, let's look back and let's admit that you don't have to talk about what it was, but let's admit that something happened. If you can at least gain that
Mm-hmm.
insight to say something happened, and yes, it's affecting me, because when I think of all these things, they anger me. So you can find, for instance, I don't want to talk too long, I think I've been talking a while now. When you look at in a family, typical Caribbean family, the mother goes to work, she comes home, she cooks, she cleans, she's this, and the father comes
Mm-hmm.
in, he's kind of the man of the house, and things are laid out for him, everything is done, he doesn't take care of the children. So there is so much that happens in the home, and then that woman, let's say she grew up in a home where she was subject to having to take care of the older siblings, having to do, or maybe she was the only girl and she
Mm-hmm.
was what we call the person taking care of all the siblings and everything else. So nothing has changed. So although she was angry about it, she never expressed it to her parents. Now she's living with a husband who's
Mm-hmm.
basically treating her in the same fashion. Now the children are paying the consequences
Yep.
because now she's angry, she's hurt, but she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
know how to express, and then she's
Yep.
depressed because the only thing is, I go to work, I come back, I can take of them, and the lack of, no one appreciates it. So because everybody takes that person for granted.
Yep.
This is just a small example of the amount of challenges that we are facing as a community. I
Mm-hmm.
This is where I can stop here, and if anybody has any questions, if you have questions, Juliet, so please go for it.
How one question I would like to bring up for someone
Mm-hmm.
who has lost someone to the hands of suicide.
Mm-hmm.
How, we spoke a lot about the village. How would you recommend dealing with grief? Because that opens up a whole new can of worms if that grief isn't taken care of as well.
Correct. So it's called unresolved grief. That's what the professionals call it. So I think that, well, I can speak because I know recently we lost someone very dear. I lost someone very dear to me, and I think that our community was severely affected. I think what's important is really to talk about the event, what happened, and to accept that the person made a decision and there is nothing that anyone could have done about it. Because sometimes you offer the help, you cannot force anyone to get help. You can
Mm-hmm.
be there for them, you can love them, but they have to love themselves. Because when somebody makes a decision to take their lives, it's not because they don't love life, it's not because they don't understand that they have the support, it's the fact that they don't feel that they are worthy of the support that they are getting. They don't feel that they are loved, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like they are worth life is worth fighting for, or that they have anything to fight for.
Mm-hmm.
And many people who actually have died at the hand, I mean, through suicide, the original intent might have been for them to kill themselves, but in the end, sometimes people have a chance to regret. For instance, many people try to attempt suicide by taking pills. Mostly women do that. There are more women who
Mm-hmm.
attempt suicide. However, more men end up dying because men are more violent in their attempts. So, and women then
Mm-hmm.
when they try to hurt themselves, they will like either call for help, they'll regret it because the moment they'll like ingest the pill, they'll go, oh my goodness, why you hurt? And they'll call someone, they'll make it to the hospital, they'll be saved. Some people they do it more because again, men are more violent. That's why they tend to die. They die more when they attempt suicide because their attempts are more violent. So when someone, it's good to talk about it, to seek help, to go to bereavement, to grief counseling. I think it's important. If the person who experienced the loss doesn't want to go to grief counseling, I recommend that they either write their memories about the person, they talk about the person, and allow themselves to feel the emotions. If you feel like crying, it's okay to cry. It's okay to tell someone, I miss this person. It's okay to talk about the good times, the sad times. And because there is what we call, there are few steps in the grieving process where you get the denial piece of things, where basically, oh, this didn't happen. And then there's the guilt, and before the guilt can last a long time, which is the anger and everything else, and before you can ever get to the acceptance phase of things and to forgive yourself and say, you know what, I've done all I could. And no one grieves the same way. For some people, it's like, oh, you know what, I can move on. For some people, it lasts 3 months. Some people it lasts 6 months. Some people it lasts years. No one grieves the same. That's why it's important to just allow time to heal the wounds and to get to that point of acceptance.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and joining us and sharing your insight. We really appreciate your support, and your wisdom, and for sharing your experiences um, from your work. We really appreciate it. Um, and I love you. She's my
I
mother
love
dear, everyone.
I love you too, Julie. I would like to leave you with this verse, if that's okay, which is a passage that I really, really
Awesome.
love. It's
Wonderful.
found in Isaiah 40, verse it starts from verse 28 to verse 31. I think most of you know this verse. It goes, do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the
Mm-hmm.
creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like
Amen.
eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. May God be with you all,
Amen.
and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Um, very important information that has shared. Great wisdom, great knowledge that has been shared in terms of suicide. Once again, for those just joining us, thank you for joining us. We're discussing the topic of mental health and suicide. In our first hour, we spoke about more of mental health, having a holistic approach to achieving mental wellness and mental health. First seeking God, always acknowledging the author of our life, the head of our life, prayer, having prayer as an important part of our healing process, but not only having that as the only process, acknowledging that God does provide professionals for us, people who can counsel us, who can help us. And that's where we come in and get the professional help. And as we're waiting for Jessica to come on, I'll just continue to recap. Seeking help is very, very important to having that holistic approach to achieving mental wellness and mental healing, in our mental health state. Third, taking care of your temple, putting things in your body, in your spirit, in your soul that are healthy. A habit I have adopted recently over the past couple of years is not watching certain types of movies, not listening to certain types of music before going to bed, because it can be very detrimental to it can affect your subconscious, it can affect your sleep, it can affect the dreams you have at night. So ensuring that you're feeding yourself with positive things, things that bring you peace, things that bring you solace, and also acknowledging your community, acknowledging those who are there to support you, those who are there to help you, those who are there to uplift you. And if you happen to be someone who is loving, who has a loved one who is suffering with mental illness, being understanding, paying attention to the signs, not disregarding them. And now in our second hour, as we approach our end, we have our last guest on, and we had Sister Maria, who started the discussion on suicide, which is very important, for us to keep in mind in terms of grieving, acknowledging that, it is not your fault. If you tried to help, you did what you could, and trying to make peace with it, going through your process. I'm not going to try to take too much away from Jessica because I know she'll have more to add. But Jessica is one of the founders of Wake Up Call Hotline. And it was founded on the vision to help everyone who has awakened to the reality of being in an abusive and depressive situation. We Wake Up Call Hotline has trained and certified crisis counselors who help provide assistance to those who need it. Jessica, the floor is yours.
Wait, I can't hear you. Wait, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Awesome. Okay, so the floor is yours. Can everybody hear Jessica? Everybody can see her and hear her? If we can get some yeses or some clicks on the like button. Okay, go right ahead. And,
okay, so
yes, we're good.
All right, so thank you, Juliet, for inviting me. As she said before, of Wake Up Call, also a trained and certified crisis counselor. So yeah, me to continue talking about
I think
suicide,
you're cutting
right?
in and out, Jessica. Are we good? Okay. Go right ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So like Maria had said before, all of us pretty much had said before that depression, mental illness affects a lot of people, and it's mostly a taboo topic in the Caribbean, what's the word? Culture. So
Community.
suicide is, yes. Suicide is the
Is everybody able to hear Jessica? I think you're cutting in and out again.
crazy how much okay, can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Okay, awesome.
Okay, so all right. Okay, so yeah, I was saying before that crazy how much suicide affects our community. Before, the rate used to be highest around people ages 69 or over, but lately between 15 and 24, the rates are increasing alarmingly. And he had said that it affects about 2%. That that suicide is the third leading cause of death in young people ages 15 to 25. Can you imagine? So it's not that it's not happening. It's the third leading cause of death in young people. So we are all affected by it, whether through a friend or someone that we know, someone that's been affected by it. So it is amazing that you guys are doing, like, the work that you guys are doing is really great. I wanted to talk today as a Christian is if suicide is sin. And the short answer to this is yes. And I want to start ahead and say that it is not an unforgivable sin. Like, because many people will be like, especially in the Haitian community, as soon as they hear that somebody killed themselves, the first thought that comes to mind, they're going to hell. And there is nowhere in the Bible that it is mentioned if somebody killed themselves that they are in fact going to hell. It is a sin, because if you read if you go through Hebrews 9 verse 27, it says that it is appointed for once. After this come judgment. So there is like a few things that we need to understand about suicide, is that it is a sin. And killing yourself, and God forbids murder. And suicide is technically the murder of self. So this is what we are basing our that we are saying that suicide is a sin, because by killing yourself, you fail to take into account that the assurances of God's grace and mercy. So it's like Maria had said before, you feel like you're not worthy of God's grace, you're not worthy of His mercy, you're not worthy to be here, to be alive, that you're not worthy of God's compassion. So it is like you're so depressed, like you are hopeless, and the only out is for you. Murder is a sin when you disobey the law. You disobey the law of God, so it is a sin. Unpardonable sin. If you go to Mark 3, verse 20 to 30, it says that, I'm paraphrasing here, the only unpardonable sin is attributing the miraculous work of the Holy Spirit and Jesus to Satan. So technically, when God is doing something miraculous and then appropriating it to Satan, that is the only sin that is not forgivable. Research for this, and even before with our training, because we are both balancing social and spiritual online. It is not, unless it's something new. If you kill yourself,
I think you're cutting in and out
hell,
again.
and this is it for you. So we need to keep that. We need to keep that in mind, and you'll be surprised to see that in the. Oh, okay. Oh my. I guess everybody's Wi-Fi is acting up today.
You're cutting in and out again.
Are we good now?
Now we're good.
Hello.
Awesome. Now we're good.
Are we good now?
Yes, we're good. Can you guys hear Jessica?
Are we good now? Okay.
I think we're good.
So
yes.
There were genuine believers in the. Yeah, can you guys hear me? Like, give me a thumbs up so I know if I can continue. Okay, so
awesome. Okay, they can.
There are genuine people in the Bible that wanted to die. If you go like men like Elijah, Job, and okay. So I'm gonna start like real quick. I was saying that there are genuine people. They are
still cutting
Elijah
in and out.
and Job. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, it says going in and out, but she's good. Oh, good Lord. All right, let me try moving a little bit closer to my router. All right, can you guys hear me? How about now?
Are we good?
We good?
Yes, we're good. Go ahead.
Are we good, Julia? Can you hear me? Okay. So yeah, I was saying that people like Elijah, Job, the scripture described these men's despair and their suicidal desire. But at the end of the day, it makes it clear that they were wrong. That that, and then they even said later on that bailing out on life would be a very bad choice. Sometimes God does take us through like the craziest situation to show up at the end. However, we're not gonna the answer is never suicidal. Never suicide. So if you know somebody that is going through like a radical change of behavior, I'm gonna list a few warning signs. Like they're talking about committing suicide. They have a radical change of behavior, not just a regular change, because people do grow up, they do change, but we're talking about a radical change of behavior. Things that they used to enjoy, that they don't enjoy them as much, and they withdraw from friends, from social activities. They're preparing for the death. They're getting, technically, like how when people are close to dying, they're getting their affair in orders. And a living person with no physical illness is talking about, I'm writing my will. I'm ready to give up. Life is not worth living, and they are giving away prized possession, things that they hold dear, and all of a sudden they're giving it to their friends, to their family, and the attempted suicide before. I don't remember which journal distributed this. It says 1 in 4 suicide, like suicide, happen after 1 in 4 attempts. So people that kill themselves have like on 4 people that tried to kill themselves, 1 had actually tried before, many times before, and they are taking unnecessary risk. They are and sometimes just a loss, having experienced a loss, like a great loss, could cause somebody to start thinking about, start having suicidal thoughts, start thinking about killing themselves. They lying for no reason. So there are many many signs that that could tell you that somebody or you're witnessing it, that those people are trying to kill themselves. And it's up to you to approach them, to ask them how, if you can help, and if you truly can.
Yep.
To refer them to professional. And if they are in a life-threatening situation, call 911. Call 911. They will send somebody like immediately to help out, and to keep talking to these people, and have them have professional help. Any questions? I'm open. So yeah, any questions? I don't want to take any more time. Yeah, so do you have any questions, Juliet?
I think you covered everything. I think the most important thing is knowing when someone, being aware of when someone is going to take their life, and those signs, them coming to the end, them, even saying no one's gonna miss me when I'm gone, people don't care, so on and so forth. Those are things that are very important to pay attention to. And I'm glad that you you touched on that. Also, knowing when you just need to hit the button. If you need to call 911, call 911. They might be upset at you, but at the end of the day, you're preventing them from doing something that could be detrimental.
Yes.
So I think you brought up very good points. You hit it right on the nail. Thank you so much.
No problem. Anytime, guys. And I just want to say, like, Wake Up Call Hotline is open for to you guys to to call in, to go and check our Facebook page and comment, and email us or whatever. We are open to helping. Or if you just want to have somebody to talk to, we are here for you guys. So thank you for having me, Juliet. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right. So first and foremost, I want to just thank everyone, all of our guests who came on, Alicia, Jean Mark, Maria, Jessica, even Obel, who came on and provided their insight about mental health, about suicide. We are approaching the end, so I'm just going to share some final thoughts. I know we want to look at, there can be a lot of questions and a lot of debate surrounding whether suicide is a sin. And I think the most important question is not necessarily whether it's a sin, but whether it's unforgivable. And when you address the topic of suicide being a forgivable or unforgivable sin, there are two ways that people could look at it. You have the perspective of once you've been saved, you're always saved. We believe that once you've accepted Christ, you've been granted that salvation. According to John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him shall not perish but have everlasting life." Ephesians 2 verse 8, it says, "For by grace you've been saved through faith, not that of yourselves, it is the gift of God." That can imply that in the same way that our good works don't save us, our bad ones are, and our sins cannot keep us from obtaining salvation, because Jesus paid the ultimate sacrifice. He died, and He paid the sacrifice for our sins so that we may live. There's another perspective where once you've given your life to Christ, that suggests that you are being led by the Holy Spirit. And when we're led by the Holy Spirit, it becomes important that we listen to the voice of God. We listen to His still small voice. There are certain things that the Holy Spirit won't lead us to do. Psalms 143 verse 10, it says, "Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your good spirit lead me on level ground." So in that sense, it's important to listen for the voice of the Holy Spirit. So when we're talking about the issue of suicide, it's those two perspectives. But what I really want to bring to light is that first and foremost, no one knows the pain that someone deals with but God Himself. Mental illness is something that often causes people to break away from reality. Oftentimes you end up doing things that you never would imagine you do, that you would never see yourself doing. You end up in places that you would never go to, and it's literally you just being broken away from reality. And I don't we spoke about being the loved one of someone who's dealing with mental illness. Sometimes it becomes a little harder loving someone who's dealing with mental illness, because you see the reality of what's going on, whereas they don't always fully understand what's going on. So we don't really understand what pain someone is going through when they're dealing with mental illness. And with that being said, as we don't understand, we also cannot determine their salvation. We cannot determine fate. At the end of the day, God is the person who speaks that fate for every person. And I think the one thing that we can ensure is that we do whatever we have to, whatever is necessary, so that we make it through the pearly gates. Oftentimes, there might be discussion of whether a person who's taken their life is going to heaven. The reality is we don't know what their walk with Christ was like. We don't know what their last words may have been. We don't know what their last exchange with Christ may have been. And also, when you're in a state of mental illness, the reality is oftentimes the state of psychosis where it's not even yourself you're not even yourself at that point when you're going through the state of psychosis. 1 Peter 1 verse 30, "Therefore with minds that are alert and fully sober, set your hope on the grace be brought to you when Jesus Christ is revealed at His coming." It is important that we ensure that we do what we need to do so that we're there when Jesus comes back, so that when the trumpet sounds, we're able to be up there with our loved ones and all of and Jesus and all of His angels. And now that we've approached the midnight mark, I'm just going to share my personal testimony, and I'm going to ask you guys to bear with me very much. Please bear with me as I share my testimony.
I I you know, I've said this on previous live broadcasts, that it's important for us to own our truth. And my truth is that I have suffered with depression, I have suffered with anxiety, and I have suffered with suicidal thoughts. I know what it's like to try to harm myself. I know what it's like to want to take my life. So I fully understand how difficult it is when you are someone fighting against your emotions. The mind is such a powerful thing, and you know, I am a testament of how hard it is to fight against your emotions. You know, to feel like you're losing a battle, to end up in places you would never imagine. I also have had to love people, have had loved ones who suffered and suffer currently from mental illness. And to be frank, one of the closest people to me took his own life last year, and it was a very, very, very difficult time. Um, and so knowing what it's been like to what it is like to suffer from mental illness, and seeing what it looks like to suffer from mental illness, I can tell you, for those who don't know, haven't really experienced it, or haven't really seen someone who's experienced it, it is not an easy battle to fight. One thing I will say, as part of my testimony, I remember there came a point where I kept telling God, I'm done. And I didn't know which day I was going to be done, but I knew I was done. And I kept threatening God, and I kept pushing him, and I kept telling him, I'm done. I'm done. And there came a point where God had to shake me up and remind me that he had a purpose for me. Because in my head, I had every excuse as to why I wasn't needed here, why everybody would be okay without me. And I didn't speak about it. I didn't say anything about it. I wasn't open about it. It was my conversation with God, where I was telling God, people are going to be all right. And I know sometimes we have these, sometimes as Christians, we might attribute mental illness to voodoo, mental illness to someone's faith and someone's walk. I will tell you, you know, I've been born, raised, grown up in the church, and the closest person I have to my heart is Jesus Christ. And I am a human being who has experienced and has suffered from mental health. Mental illness is a human thing that happens to human people, and we have to learn to be sensitive to that. But if you are going through depression, if you're going through mental health, a mental health issue, if you're going through anxiety, PTSD, if you've experienced trauma that might haunt you day in and out, I am here, and I am a testament that God has a purpose for every single last one of us. And sometimes it's hard to reach that purpose. Sometimes it's hard to understand that purpose, especially when you're going through your pain and you're going through it. But I can promise you, God has a reason why he placed you on this earth. And the fact that he saw you so precious that he sent his only child to die on the cross for us speaks to the fact that we all matter. We have a purpose on this earth. And even if it hurts us, our story, our pain might just save somebody else's life. So I'm going to leave you with these couple of lessons based off of my experience, especially. Number one, as we mentioned before, mental illness is real illness. It is not something that you want to take lightly. Okay, you take it as serious as you take the flu, as you take the cold. It is not something that l'huile masqueti and teasosi can heal. It is real. It is something to be taken seriously, very seriously. It is okay to be human. We all go through stressors, whether it's financial, whether it's in our family, whether it's friends. We all go through things in life, and sometimes it's a lot. But we need to learn to depend first and foremost on God, second of all, on professional help, third of all, on our community, and also taking measures, healthy measures that help us achieve that mental wellness. Second,
People need people, and I can't stress this enough. People need people. I can guarantee you, first, God, I know I would not be here if it were not for God. But there were times when I knew I was capable of doing something to harm myself. I had every way of doing it, but it was that phone call, it was that friend that literally just made me circle back. And I can't emphasize it enough. People need people. Show kindness always. Just because you don't hear from someone, just because you think they're doing okay, that does not mean that they're doing okay. And just because they're putting on a smile, just because they're out on Facebook, they're out on social media, they're out in public smiling, carrying around, that does not speak to the pain that they might be dealing with. That does not speak to the demons that they might be fighting. So you, as a loved one, as a community, as a village, it is up to us to be our brother, our sister's keeper, to be responsible, to feel responsible for one another. It could be your smile, your hug, your good morning, good afternoon, your I love you, you're doing great, your word of encouragement, your word of hope that can prevent someone. Exactly, Jessica. No one is an island. You're not alone, and you should not, no one should ever feel alone. It is those words of compassion, those words of encouragement that can deter someone from making a decision that can impact so many people. The matter of the fact is, even if you feel that people won't be affected, many people will. And that's something I can testify to. Someone I lost very close to me who said that who thought that no one would care that they were gone. And when they were gone, the amount of people that one person impacted, and it didn't depend on your race, it didn't depend on your gender, it didn't depend on your color, it didn't depend on your age. It was a whole community with so many people who were impacted. So I'm here to remind you to show kindness, to show love, to show compassion to one another. Understand that sometimes when we choose that we're going to be harsh instead of show love, that could be the one thing that causes someone to make a decision that scars even you forever. And you don't want to live with guilt, the guilt of knowing that there are last words you could have told someone and you didn't say them, that there was an I love you could have told someone, there was a hug you could have given someone that you didn't give them. Show kindness always. Galatians 5 verse 20 through to 23 says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. Show love. Be merciful. Be gentle upon one another. Your brother, your sister, your friends, sometimes they might frustrate us. And sometimes they might go through things, and we might have to put our life on hold. We might have to put our job, our careers, our house, our car. There are sacrifices you have to make, and I can guarantee you, take it from someone who's lost, someone dear to them. There is no money, there is no car, there is no job. There is nothing that is worth more than a human life. Because once you lose that human life, no matter how much money you pay, no matter what riches, what material things you give up, it will never bring them back. Show kindness always. Always strive to show kindness, to show love, to smile, to hug. Live every day like it's your last. And understand, I'm going to close off with this. Your pain is not the end. There are days that you're going to want to give up. And I can't promise you peaches and roses, because I don't have peaches and roses till this day. If I'm being honest with you, not every night I can sleep. Not every day I can smile. There are times I do have to fight with my emotions, but it's prayer that has gotten me to this point. It is my community that has gotten me to this point. It is the ability to look for help, to seek for professional help that has gotten me to this point. And I cannot stress it enough. Do not think that God does not want us to seek help. Do not think that God doesn't want us to go to our community, to our friends, to our family. Do not think that God did not place professionals in our life to help us get the healing that we need. It is very, very important. But the most important thing is to understand that your pain is not your end. I've had many times when I thought it was my end. And even though I don't want to share this story, I'm going to share it. When my best friend passed away last July, every day I told God, if you take one more person from me, I'm going to kill myself. And 8 people followed. 8 people followed. 8 people passed away. And every day for almost a month, I would go up to the train tracks and I would tell God, keep taking people and I'm going to jump these tracks. Stop playing with me. And I kept threatening God because I was frustrated and I was done. I'm a choir director. I'm a youth leader. I am a daughter. I'm a cousin. I'm a friend. I'm a sister, a goddaughter. I'm a coworker. And for almost every day, I was able to convince myself that everybody would be okay without me being here. And I remember one day I didn't take the train to work. I drove into work. And one of my coworkers put in a group chat that someone jumped the tracks. And when I looked it up on the news, I came to find out that the same tracks I had been looking at day after day after day for at least a month. Someone jumped those tracks. And the Lord spoke to me and told me, Juliet, you need to stop threatening me because you know my purpose for you is so much greater than whatever you see for yourself. And I had to go through it with God, but I had to keep him close. And if it were not for me listening to the voice of the Lord, I would not be here today. If it were up to me determining my fate, I probably would have jumped those tracks a long time ago. And so I'm telling every single person watching this, you all have a purpose here. And your pain is not your end. God fights for us. He has the ultimate victory. And you have to believe it as hard as it is, as much as you want to give up, as much as you want to cut yourself, drink yourself to sleep, hang yourself, jump off a building, jump off a roof, a balcony, as much as you want to jump tracks, whatever it is, as much as you feel that you as a failure because you're not graduating on time, because you're financially struggling, you don't know how you're going to feed your kids, you don't know how you're going to feed yourself, you have chronic illness and you don't see the end of it. Every doctor is giving up on you and telling you, you know what, I don't know what to tell you anymore. When you feel that you have no friends, when you feel like your family's walking out on you, when you feel like that boyfriend who broke your heart or the one who raped you or the one who abused you or cursed at you or violated you, when they walk out on you, when you feel it's the end, please understand that it is not the end. Because God has the ultimate victory. And I'm going to leave you all with Psalms 46. For a very long time, I chose not to pray on the lives, but I'm going to be obedient this once. And I'm going to pray for every single person on this live and those who end up watching it afterwards. I'm going to pray that God be your source of peace. And even if there's something that is troubling you, that is stressing you, that is hurting you, that he gives you the strength to listen for his voice. No matter how hard it is, no matter how much you want to give up, listen for the voice of God. Psalms 46 says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.
Therefore we will not fear. Though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, there is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, she shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heaven raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Come behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he had made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease until the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that he is God. I will be exalted among the heaven. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. I just ask you to bow your heads and close your eyes as we give this closing prayer. Lord, as we come into your feet, we thank you because you are so gracious and you're so merciful and you're so faithful towards us. We thank you because you thought of us before we had a chance to think of ourselves. We thank you because you love us more than we love ourselves. We thank you that even when we want to give up on ourselves, you've never given up on us. We thank you because you sent your one and only Son to die so that we could have life. And we ask for forgiveness because sometimes it just gets hard. Sometimes we don't always get it right. And because we're human, sometimes we just cave in. Sometimes we'll drink. Sometimes we'll smoke. Sometimes we'll cut ourselves. Sometimes we'll engage in activity that we know is not good for us. But because we just can't handle it, we do it. As I come into your feet, I ask that you be with every single person who is on this broadcast tonight. I don't know their hurt. I don't know the stress. I don't know the struggles they deal with. But Lord, I plead and I beg that you touch them in a special way. Give them the strength to trust you. Give them the strength to lean on you. Give them the strength to have hope in your love, in your grace, in your mercy. Give them the strength to be led by your Spirit, to listen to your voice, and give them the strength to seek help from those that you've provided, that you've placed in our lives for us. I ask that you be with those who are the loved ones of those struggling with mental illness. Lord, it is not easy to watch someone in pain. It is not easy to watch someone struggle, but I ask that you touch them, give them the strength to be understanding, to be compassionate. Help us to be more compassionate, to be more kind, to be more loving toward each other. And for those who are grieving the loss of loved ones to the hands of suicide, please give them the strength to remember that it is not their fault, that when they tried, they did all they could. We ask that you bless us this night, bless this Sabbath day. We thank you once again for your grace, your love, and your mercy. Be with us, guide us, protect us. Do all these things we ask. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. God bless you all. Remember, you matter. Your life matters. You are important. If no one tells you, God loves you. I love you. And have a good night. Bye.